Hey guys, good morning. It's Caleb, just hanging out here at the church. Before we jump into our devotional, I just wanted to give you a quick tour of what's going on here. We got our Facebook live stream set up. Okay, this is where we've been doing worship, and then Pastor Brad's been teaching right there. You see we got like all of our fancy cameras. There's another one. Really funny. There our stuff from youth group, our new ping pong table, foosball table, and our couch. So it's still set up in here from the last time we had youth group. I miss it a lot. Definitely wish you guys could be filling up this space. It was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to having you back, though. Funny little side note, these lamps, they're not actually lamps. They're just pieces of paper that Gabe taped together. See, legitimately, he just took pieces of paper and taped it together, and then he dropped a light bulb down the middle of it. Crazy, right? And then these are just mic stands, so they're not actual lamps. They're just do it yourself. But Gabe's killing it. We're having fun here still at the church. If you want to hang out, we got a basketball hoop, and there's been a few other kids from the neighborhood that can come around and shooting hoops. I don't know if you have one by you, but you're more than welcome to come over and shoot hoops here. And we can hang out that way. We got spike ball, ping pong. I'm going kayaking today with a few kids. Super looking forward to that. I know not everybody's able to go, but we'll be on the river 6 feet apart still for the most part. The rest of the week is not supposed to be very nice weather, but later on this summer, as it continues to get warmer, looking forward to hanging out with you guys and inviting you guys over to come kayaking as much as possible. My parents live on the river, so it's super easy and fun to do. And speaking of which, youth group, that's where we talked about kayaking, at least in the high school youth group. Is going really well. It's been a lot of fun so far. Our middle school meets 6 o'clock. If you haven't logged on yet for our middle school Zoom group every Sunday night, make sure you try that this week. Or high school, we meet at 7:30 Sunday night on Zoom. I'm texting you guys all the links and the login information, and you just click that, and it takes you right to it. So it's a lot of fun. I would love to see you guys there this Sunday night. But we've been doing well. So within youth group, we started talking about this idea of the kingdom of God and the kingdom of heaven, and how when Jesus came and he dwelt among us, he began to inaugurate this new kingdom, how he ushered in this new era. All right, guys? And so now we're going to begin to talk about what does that look like? What does the kingdom of heaven look like? And in our New Testament chronological devotional today, Jesus actually gives a bunch of different parables about what the kingdom of heaven looks like, okay? So primarily reading out of Matthew chapter 13, I believe. Yeah, Matthew chapter 13, and then Mark chapter 4, I believe it was. Jesus gives like 5 different parables about what the kingdom of heaven is like. So make sure you jump into these passages later on this afternoon or this morning, whenever that might be, and read what Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is like. Okay, so remember, what Jesus teaches a lot in parables. And what is a parable? A parable is like a story. It's like a metaphor. Okay, so Jesus says teaching about what the kingdom of heaven is like is using metaphors. Okay. The first one that Jesus gives in Matthew chapter 13, verses 24 through 30 is a parable of the weeds. And he says, the kingdom of heaven is like a field, and within the field there's a guy who plants good seeds, and then there's a guy who plants bad seeds, weeds, okay? The guy who plants good seeds, he later goes on and he says is himself. And the one who plants evil seeds is the devil, okay? And then he says later on that there will be a time where they grow up together, and that time is right now where there's good along with the evil, but there will come a time eventually where they will separate them, okay? And they will burn the weeds, and then there will be no more evil, there will be no more pain, there will be no more suffering in the world, okay? He says that, then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Whoever has ears, let them hear, okay? So kind of implying right now in the kingdom of heaven, because Jesus has inaugurated this kingdom for the time being, that there's good and there's evil concurrent. They're existing together. Jesus hasn't separated them apart yet, but there will be a day when that happens, okay? The next parable, I love this one, is that the parable of the mustard seeds. It says in Matthew chapter 13, verse 31, that the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and planted in his field. And so mustard seeds are these super tiny little guys, but they grow up into these huge plants, and they grow up really, really quickly, really fast. And so the idea is that the kingdom of heaven is going to start really small, but then it's going to boom, it's going to explode, okay? And we see that happen as we read our New Testament. We'll get into a little bit more, but the kingdom of heaven just explodes, okay? God's glory begins to just spread out all throughout the earth really rapidly, really quickly. The gospel spreads really, really quickly in the beginning, in the New Testament, in the early church, okay? So there's a ton of growth in the kingdom of heaven. It's something that expands really quickly, all right? And then finally, the kingdom of heaven is one that is of immense value. And so later on, there's a parable of the hidden treasure and the parable of the pearl, okay? And it says that when the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. I'm reading Matthew 13, verse 44. When a man finds it, he hid it again, and then in his joy he went and sold all that he had and bought the field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it. And so this kind of describes the kingdom of heaven being something of immense value. So once people find it, like that's where all their worth is. They're like, what? This is incredible. All right? So living in the kingdom of heaven is like the greatest thing for them. It's the best thing. And they find their worth and they find their value in being in the kingdom of heaven, which means following Jesus, okay? And we're going to jump into that a lot more, but that's a brief overview of some of the parables that Jesus talked about. But he begins to talk about the kingdom of heaven. He didn't begin, but at least in our passage today, he gave a few parables. So go ahead, read them, check them out. But the question I have for you guys is the kingdom of heaven valuable to you? Is it the kingdom that you're wanting to live for and wanting to live in even more so? You know, a lot of times as students, we're super conflicted with like the kingdom of the world, okay? And we're super conflicted with the culture of our friends or the culture that we find at our school. We want to fit into that kingdom. We want to live by those rules, whether it's like being popular or like because you're funny, but a lot of times being funny is like making fun of other kids or doing drugs or whatever it might be. I just went to an extreme, but you guys get the gist, okay? And we're trying to fit into the kingdom of our school's culture. And that's kind of at odds with the kingdom of heaven. That's kind of at odds with the rules that Jesus sets up, okay? And it's not rules like, oh, you have to follow them, but like I meant like the physical rules, like the law of gravity, something that exists. All right, it's something that is self-evident, right? It exists and you can't fight it. You can tell yourself that it doesn't exist, but it's still true. In the same way, that's just like, kind of like the kingdom of heaven. We're going to keep on talking about this. I love you guys a lot. I miss you. Hope to catch up to you soon. Bye.